Hi everyone, Ross Fowler from Roller Equity. I hope everyone's staying healthy and safe. Now with everything that's happening nowadays, a lot of people have a lot of concerns and questions. So I decided to consult with a legal expert who I've worked with many times, Deanna Huclack, a real estate lawyer, to address some of the questions that people are asking.
Well, thank you very much, Deanna, for coming and sharing with us. I know there's been a lot of changes been happening in the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to get somebody who has been really staying on top of things and can go over it with us.
Thanks, Ross, for having me and for setting this all up, because as I told you, I'm a newbie at all this. So thank you again. Yeah, I keep on hearing the word unprecedented times, that we've never encountered anything like this before. And when you think about, I think the last pandemic was what, 1918? So probably not, I wasn't around then. So yeah, it's really strange times. I actually had a recent webinar from the Law Society. I actually just wanted to share that with everybody. Okay. What's going on from the legal standpoint. As you know, I do primarily real estate as well as wills and estate administration. So the word from lawyers who are much more senior to me, who have a lot more experience and a lot more knowledge and much smarter. But so they held a webinar also with Jeff Lem, Jeffrey Lem is the director of titles. So land registration system, what's going on with that with the COVID-19. So maybe I'll just sort of regurgitate what we have been told from the side, and then we'll go from there. So the first land registration system, they have no intention of shutting it down. So, which is great. So everything's done electronically anyhow. So we don't have, back in the old days where there was actually the land registration office, and it was like the floor of the New York Stock Exchange when you're going to do closings. We haven't had that for quite some time. And a couple of years ago, TerraView, which is the company that runs the portal to the land registration system, went web-based. So we already do registrations from the comfort of our own offices anyhow. So there's no reason to stop that. And Mr. Lem, is this wonderful personality, and he's made it very clear to the real estate bar that absolutely under no circumstances he doesn't see himself ever recommending that they shut down TerraView, shut down the land registration system. So as far as we know, that's going to continue on for however long. Now, everything up to today, as we're seeing things change daily, hourly, that could change. But right now, everything I'm telling you is right now what we know.
Okay.
Land registration is going to continue on. So that's good. So he's made it very clear. He has there's no such thing as business as usual anymore. Certainly land registration is going to continue on. So what does that mean for us? So it means that you can still buy and sell real estate. Where we're seeing the major impact is with respect to the movement of funds and keys to complete the transactions. Banks are still going to remain open. We deal with head office more than anything anyhow. So the branches, yes, they're shortening their hours. I think they talked about only having one branch per area, whatever that means.
Right.
But mostly real estate lawyers, we deal with head office anyhow. Actually, funds have been getting to our trust accounts quicker than before COVID-19 hit. Where we're finding the delays is in getting our discharge statements. So if you're acting for a vendor and they've got a mortgage and they need to pay up the mortgage, discharge statements tend to be slower coming these days. And I suspect that that's because a lot of the bank employees are now working from home and working remotely, and probably just not as efficient as it used to be. So we have to have a little bit of extra leeway in there. Getting our checks certified, things like that, to have the movement of funds go smoothly. The upside probably is that us lawyers our industry has always been a bit of dinosaurs. Like, we're not allowed to use DocuSign, we're not allowed to do a lot of the things because we're the last stop for fraudulent activity, sort of thing. But maybe we are going to start to move into this century and be able to be more efficient and use technology in better ways, like getting banks are moving to get things so that lawyers can wire directly from our desktop, which help us a lot to move funds quickly between law firms, as opposed to My clerk goes to the bank and certifies a check, and then we have to courier it or deposit to there, and it's a whole process that takes, a, a bit of time. The downside with wiring is that how long that takes.
Yeah, I've actually heard that now they're starting to ease up on the idea that money can be transferred right from the client's home, and they can actually wire money directly to you guys. Now they're saying there's a limit of $3,000 because of the, terrorism, and so they're coming up with solutions. Okay, so if you have to whatever amount, you just keep going 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. You just keep transferring money until you get to that amount that you're supposed to get to.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's going to change or not, but that's what I've been hearing. So,
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do that for individuals.
right,
No, between the law firms. One of the reasons that we tended to stick with certified checks because, again, the banks drive a lot of what we do, their
Right.
requirements, et cetera. Basically, they want a certified check drawn on a lawyer's trust account. We could do wiring, but wiring was a lot more expensive. And, doing a certified check would take my staff, maybe, an hour tops, running to the banks and blah, blah, blah. Maybe we could,
Right.
if we had to, we could use a direct courier. But a wiring tended to take like 4 or 5 hours. And so, and it was more expensive. So now the
Right.
cost has come down and the speed at which the banks are doing it has greatly decreased. So it's become a viable option. And I think
Okay.
we're gonna do more of that. I think what we're going to see, some things are going to become a new normal. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to get us more into the 21st century. But what does it mean for the real estate clients right now? It means, maybe give a little bit extra lead time to getting things done.
Okay.
The big question, of course, is this going to allow deals to collapse? Is this going to precipitate people backing out of deals? The short answer, and again, from lawyers who are much wiser and more experienced than I am, is absolutely not. This is basic contract law. Even if there's a pandemic, a lot of the remedies one might have available are not going to change. The remedies that are available are not going to be expanded all of a sudden. Things like, well, there's been a frustration of the contract or things like that. Not necessarily. And in any event, even if somebody wanted to get out of a deal and thought that, well, that's just opening up a can of worms and potential lawsuits. And let's say if anybody has had any experience with the courts, you really do want to avoid that. Lawsuits, going to court is nasty, British, and long. And
Right.
your money's going to get tied up. And who knows? I mean, I always say, if the law were certain, we'd only need one Supreme Court of Canada justice. We have 9 and they can't always agree. So you just never know what's going to happen. I would not have a crystal ball to say. So you don't want to take that chance. So you want to, deals should still be completing.
Right.
Maybe extensions a little bit. It shouldn't be that much different than it was before. The only issue that you might have, and that's your issue, is how are houses selling? Is the market delayed now? Things like that. But from the legal standpoint, we're going to be continuing on. And if somebody needs an extension, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. It's going to be what is the reason, what length of extension is needed. There's going to be costs associated with that because generally it's purchasers who might need to, if their funding falls through or whatever, get new funding. It's not the vendor's fault. The vendor's still going to be entitled to, have their funds when they're supposed to, or if not, we're going to look at saying, well, what's the cost for continuing on with their mortgage? There's extra things like that. So we're going to have to be fair, be reasonable. Don't do sharp practice. Don't, courts do not like people who take advantage of situations. So, but if it's fair and reasonable, everybody working reasonably, there still needs to be an extension, then we take a look at it at that time and figure out what the costs are. Being reasonable, price gouging.
Oh, well, you know what? There's, from the real estate point of view, I mean, a lot of things obviously are changing, but people still have to buy and sell. You know, I even have a client that have to sell now, and you know, so the open houses, you know, you can't have personal open houses anymore. You can't showings, or they all have to be done by virtual now. But you know what? From us, for our standpoint of view, yeah, we have to continue, and this is why you see what we're doing here, and
Right.
everybody's on a very, very steep learning curve right now. So, you know, and you're right, you have to be patient, and you have to understand people's needs, and you just got to work through it, right? Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. You know, when you do your, I don't know if drones can go inside or whatever, but you know, you're doing the walkthrough, flush that toilet so that the purchaser sees that there's good water flow, and there's, you know,
Well, that's it, right?
things like that.
Well, it's gonna be the sellers actually doing the videos. It's gonna be the sellers walking through with their iPhone
Yeah.
on something like Facebook Live, and where people actually just log into it and then ask questions through, you know, a chat saying,
Yeah.
could you stop here, look at this, flush the toilet, do those type of things, and
Sure.
then the seller will have to actually do it.
Yeah, turn the water on in the shower and let's see how it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be different for sure. For you guys, it must be very difficult because I mean, obviously, you obviously don't want people coming to your office. So, are you able to use DocuSign now? Are you guys able to do?
No.
Okay.
We do have other protocols, and before I forget, we'll go back. I just wanted to talk about a couple clauses that have been bandied about to be putting into agreements of purchase and sale. So I'll tell you what we're doing at our office. So
Okay.
first of all, we're minimizing the contact that we do have with clients. It wasn't so bad with real estate anyhow. It was with when I do wills and estates. I usually like to have 2 meetings. The first one is just an information. Then the clients go away and think about it. And then they give me instructions, and they come back and they sign. So now we're doing that via telephone or Zoom or Skype or whatever. So we're minimizing the contact. If somebody does have to come in, like I say, all our discussion has been done beforehand now. So the doors are locked, so you have to call when you get here, and we'll open the door up. There's hand sanitizer. I have gloves. I'm not seeing clients in my office anymore because I don't really have, it's an okay size office, but the boardroom is much better suited for keeping 6 feet apart. So they'll sit here's your stack, and I actually have Lysol, and I spray the documents. So the documents have been sprayed, the room's been sanitized. Here's take your pen and take it home with you. Here's a pen, and here's some gloves if you wish to. They sign, I go through, I still explain to them, just like I always did, what it is they're signing and the impact of the documents, et cetera, keeping the 6 feet. And then they leave it, they go out. We could do it other ways. I could pass documents through the car window if they'd prefer. Can we do document signing via Skype or Zoom or stuff? There has been some information coming from the Law Society. A lot of it's going to depend on what the banks require. So for purchaser, if the bank says that we need to be in the presence of the client to witness, then that's what we're going to have to do. It's evolving on a day-to-day basis. My frontline staff, which is the only one that my clients are seeing, clients are now not seeing my real estate staff. I mean, they could if they had to. They can talk to them on the phone. But my frontline staff, who's Lisa, who's the one that's when people walk in the door, she's got a mask, she's got gloves on when she meets with the clients. There's the hand sanitizer. She takes a step back so they can step forward. So we're maintaining the 6 feet of distance. We're maintaining sanitization. And again, we're shortening the appointments and doing as much as we can via telephone or email, so the clients are all aware, and then it's quick in and out. The other thing that has changed is keys, because one of the things that came out of some of the news and stuff is that this virus tends to stay longer on metal surfaces or whatever. So we're trying to minimize, where before the crux of the transaction was the key for the money. It's a very expensive piece of metal. Vendors would bring the key to us if we were acting with the vendors. It goes to the vendor's lawyer. Vendor's lawyer sends it to the purchaser's lawyer with their documents, and then the purchaser's lawyer, of course, sends money, and that's the transaction. So we're not dealing with the keys anymore. We're asking that the lock boxes be left on the doors. Vendor's realtor, if we're acting for them, provides us with the code. We provide it to the other side upon closing. So the deal's
Okay.
closed, registered. By the way, here's the code your client can now get into the house. And vice versa. Other lawyers are doing this all. We've all sort of come to the same conclusion as to what's going to be a best practice. Again, this can change, but for right now, this is what we're doing.
Are they going to have to or going to start to demand those electronic security lock boxes, or are they going to just go with the old-fashioned, 4 digits codes or
At this point in time, it's just old-fashioned 4-digit ones.
whatever? Okay, so they're just talking about just a regular lock box. Everything else. Okay, all right, that's good.
And it's just, we'd like it to be a little bit more secure, but we're all stumbling through this as best that we can, right?
Right. No, it is. I think another one. So you were saying going back to the contract law. So basically, that's going to take priority. Even if people are temporarily laid off, that's not going to be a way for them to get out of it. They could be, obviously, like you said, they're going to have, ask for delays. The costs will have to come into everything. We'll have to play fair and work through it. I mean, obviously, if everybody wants the deal to go through, then we'll get through it and we'll make it happen. But
right, it's sort of like when the stress test rules first came out, and we saw a lot of people all of a sudden not qualifying, or appraisals that banks would do right before closing were now coming in less than what the contract price was. So there was a lot of challenge. We saw about a third of our deals not closing on time. But again, that calmed down after a bit. We did see some extensions, but there were reasonable costs associated with it, and deals still closed. I think we're going to see the same type of thing here. Now, if somebody loses their job due to the pandemic, first of all, there's government measures in place that weren't in place before, which is good.
Right.
But like anything, if your financing falls through, there's some very good reputable mortgage brokers out there, and we have firms like. So you might need an extension if you're a purchaser, but it wouldn't be for a long period of time. It might be a couple weeks. You get a mortgage in place to complete the transaction. You're going to pay the vendors extra interest costs, and then we get it done. Where I could see some further delays is if somebody has to sell their house first.
Right.
And then, but at this point in time, I mean, it's contract law. Just the fact of the pandemic does not allow you to capitalize on it and get out of a transaction, whether you're buyer or seller. You've got a contract, it's enforceable. If you back out of it without a mutual release, you're facing, potential lawsuit when the courts reopen. I will tell you, the courts are closed, at least I think now until May 1st. So for anybody who is other than urgent matters, there's urgent criminal and there's urgent family law matters that are still going ahead, but things like I do wills and estates and on the estate administration, we're not able to file any application for probate right now. The courts are on hold. So when the courts reopen, but you still could be subject to a lawsuit if you didn't, play fair.
Now, I don't know if you guys even touched on this, but this is one of the questions that somebody had. This might be more for a mortgage broker, for example, but in the legal point of view, so let's say somebody's had a mortgage for 20 years and they get temporarily laid off. They got to renew their mortgage. They walk back to the same bank. The bank looks at them and says, okay, no, you don't work anymore. Therefore, we're not going to renew your mortgage. Is there any legal, anything coming out legally saying the banks have to say right now, because of this situation, if you've been laid off because of the pandemic, then the bank has to renew your mortgage? Because if they don't do that, that is going to cause a lot of people in the situation that we're going through right now are not going to be qualifying, obviously, from the financial point of being able to get their renewal done. So legally, have you even talked about that?
We haven't really talked about that because we only see that when we're actually doing a refinance, when the bank, so people are doing an equity takeout or switching lenders or things like that.
Okay.
Here's what I just think though. First of all, if you're renewing with your existing lender and this is probably more a question for mortgage brokers, but my experience is
Right.
if you're renewing with an existing lender, they're not usually checking your finances anyhow, unless you haven't been making your payments. As long as you've kept your payments up, they send you a form, you sign out, yeah, I want this, okay, here's what the payments are, that's fine, off you go, bye-bye. So
Okay.
don't double check that. Second of all, and banks are pretty much like that. From the legal standpoint, you're entitled to peaceful enjoyment of your property, provided you're making those mortgage payments. So even if you've lost your job, as long as you're making the mortgage payments, I mean, they can do a checkup, yes. Make sure everything's okay. On the flip side, it wouldn't matter whether it's the pandemic or anything else. The banks are under no obligation to renew with you, but they do because that's how they make their money.
Right.
They don't want to be putting people out on the street. They don't want to, I mean, especially now, if they were to do something like that, I think the bad press would be sufficient for them to double think that.
Right.
And because there's other lenders out there, there's B lenders, there's all sorts of other options, and it would just make, you know, the lender not look good. So unless there's a really good reason for them, I don't see that happening anyhow.
Okay.
Because a lot of them, they're offering, you know, there's the skip of payments, there's this, that, the next thing. And even if you do get laid off, you're going to be entitled to the EI and the programs and stuff. So you're going to have some sort of income coming in. So
Right.
then look at, you know, if you get behind, then that's a different story.
That's different.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Another question. You were talking about those clauses that you guys were talking about.
Right.
What were primarily those clauses that you would insert?
Okay, so I saw, and it was just on one case that somebody had suggested, a realtor, a colleague of mine had said, oh, you know, my company, all of which is going to remain, this hypothetical, had said, here's some potential clauses that we can put in regarding COVID-19, and basically was saying in the event that as a result of the pandemic, the banks closed and this closed and that closed, and giving almost like a pre-agreement to extend. The challenge that the issues that I saw with the clauses as they were drafted is two things. They were vague on details. So as far as being enforceable, it'd be very challenging for these to be enforceable. But the other thing is they tended to take all the risk that is associated with the purchaser and put it on the vendor. And I didn't think that was right. I think going back to my original comment, it's going to be case by case. There's not going to be a blanket clause that the realtors can put in to say, well, you know, if this happens or if that happens because of the pandemic, here's what we're going to do. I don't know that's going to work that way because things are changing all the time. Right now, the banks are not closing, and we have ways to complete transactions. Second of all, if there is a situation where we're going to have to be even more creative, the risk of the transaction, I don't think ought to be solely on one side or the other. Mm-hmm. Right? Granted that it's not the purchaser's fault that they need an extension. It's also not the vendor's fault. So again, going back to this reasonableness and fairness, and I always remember in law school, they was talk about the man on the Clapham bus, basically, which was, of course, we get our laws originally from England. And it was just the average person on the bus. What would they think is reasonable? And we still have that as a threshold. So we don't want clauses that are going to put the risk of a failed or an extended transaction solely on one side. Mm-hmm. Maybe what we're going to see is like, okay, these are what the costs are going to be, and maybe they ought to be shared between the parties. And I'm not saying necessarily 50-50. It depends on the circumstances, again, case by case by case.
Okay. Okay.
Are there costs associated? Absolutely. But how and why and how we're going to address that is going to have to depend on the circumstances. I don't think that there's...
So that's going to be a lot more legal. You're saying, you know, case by case by case. So it's going to be, you guys are going to be involved in a lot more actual deals that are actually happening at the moment versus then you guys just getting a piece of paper at the end of it saying, this is the deal, this is what's going on, these are your clauses. Yeah. So you must be getting prepared for a lot of phone calls that are going to be coming up, like from me. And
yeah. And you know what? You know? I put myself out there to say, like, if you need help, regardless of whether we're doing the deal or not, mind you, what I would recommend is if if the client's got a lawyer, and if they call that lawyer, because we're all, like to do things our own particular way. And
Right.
back to the 9 different judges in the Supreme Court, we all have a peculiar way. So, and I'm just talking about my own perspective, and talk to another lawyer, they're gonna have another perspective. But generally speaking, I think we're more or less in the same ballpark anyhow.
Oh, good.
So yeah, call the lawyer saying, look, here's the situation. What can we do to? Because the neat thing about real estate is, by and large, we're all on the same page. We all want a deal to close.
That's right.
The vendor wants it to close. The purchaser wants it to close. The agent wants to close. The lawyer. We all are really on the same side. It's not an adversarial process per se. So it's just a matter how do we get this done that's going to protect everybody's interests and is fair to both sides. Right?
That's good.
Or as judges are liking to say, something that's the best deals are where both parties are equally dissatisfied.
This is true. Yes, you're right. When both parties walk away, they're both content, not one party's happy. So, another one that's been brought up quite a few times. Clients of mine have bought, condos, new projects, are now just even today are now all they consider all new projects and construction is being halted. All existing construction is now continuing. That's just from today. So not knowing of any timeline now on when this condo will be available, are the purchasers under whatever reason, can they get their deposits back and move on to something else like a resale or something of that nature? Or is their money locked up indefinitely until somebody says, okay, we just decided not to build it after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. I don't even know what the timeline would be for something like that.
That's the issue. We don't know. Currently, can the purchasers get out? No, not at this point in time, because most brand new builds, whether it's condo or townhouses or houses,
right,
condos tend to have the worst time because you're dependent on so many other people, whereas detached, just like it's just your house and everything. So Tarion warranty, which insures all the brand new builds in Ontario, they have part of their clause, and this is the Tarion warranty, which ensures you that you're going to get a reasonably well built building, and if there's not, you have recourse. Also has this unavoidable delay. And if you've got a brand new build condo that you bought and you're waiting for, you've likely gotten a notice. I've had quite a few clients already get this notice to say, oh, unavoidable delay. And what it does is it allows the builders a few extra months. So the duration of the pandemic plus a certain period of time afterwards, which allows them to get back up to speed, sort of thing. So what does that mean for the purchaser? Right now, you cannot get out of it. It's still a binding contract.
right,
However, what those notices do not allow the builder to do, it doesn't allow them to extend past their, they don't get to reset all the dates. Okay, so if you've got a second tentative date on where you carry on warranty and everything, so they don't get to reset those dates. So they've still got to work within that time frame, even if it's an unavoidable delay. Again, it's going to be depending on the circumstances of that particular unit when the purchaser's end date was in any event. So for example, if you bought it in 2018 and expected completion date was 2021 and the purchaser's termination date would have been November of 2021. And I'm just pulling dates out of the air just to give
right.
You still can't back out until November of 2021. So even though they've given you this notice of unavoidable delay, because they don't know when they're going to be able to get their trades back in to work and everything like that, you're not going to be able to get out of it at least until then. So you're still, because they might be able to catch up with things afterwards. Now, if your closing was supposed to be recently and they've done this, and again, I'd have to we keep on getting notices for different changes. we take a look at and see what the dates say on the contract and whether they can then get out of it. But it would have been like your outside completion date, and now they're saying unavoidable delay. It can't go on indefinitely. There is an end. That's the short answer. There is an end to it. But it's not, again, you can't capitalize on it and say, oh, they've given me this notice of unavoidable delay, and that means I get to get out of it. Unfortunately not.
Okay. You've pretty well answered most of the questions that I can see that I basically had top 6 of the questions, and unless you wanted to add something else.
Yeah, the big thing was about the funding and
Yes.
get out of a deal at this point in time.
Right.
Again, I extend myself. If anybody has any questions, I can always give a call to the office or send an email, and we do our best and say we are still working, even if the door is locked, and just make the
That's
best
good. Well, at least that keeps everybody somewhat calm and knows that things are still happening behind the scenes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Have some normalcy in a really abnormal situation.
Yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, it's about everybody, keeping apart and being safe, and we'll get through this. I mean, this is just an event. This is something like what happened in like a 9/11. Everybody got scared to travel, but eventually everybody got over it, and we started doing it again. This is gonna, might take a little bit longer, but we will get through this. I think the governments are doing a great job for all their money that they're infusing into the economy, so which is a great thing. And Ontario will pull out of it for sure. Like they were saying, I guess today they were saying, 12 to 18 months it could go on for, but we'll get through it.
We will.
One thing at a time. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely. I think all of our governments are doing, regardless of what stripe you are politically, it doesn't matter anymore.
That's right.
We're all working together, and everybody's doing their bit, and I'm just really, really proud to be Canadian. I have to say.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know what? I just wanted to thank you very much for taking your time. I know you're really busy, without a doubt, with all the calls and everything you're getting. But again, thank you.
First of all, thanks for having me, and I will be here. I have no holidays planned. Not at this point in time.
No.
So I'll be here. Yeah, we have had shortened hours a little bit. I've sent my staff home just because. In these unprecedented times, there's the whole psychological impact of it it's been daunting, it's been scary, it's been nerve-wracking, and so you see people who are a lot more anxious and stuff. So at the very least, again, part of the be reasonable, be kind to one another. My staff does go home a little bit earlier, only because them to be able to recharge themselves and come back and work. And even though there's just myself and my 3 other staff, and we're sort of like our own little family here.
Yeah.
But just to recharge mentally, because I think
absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know what? I just find that people just have to. I know it's very emotional. Everybody's under a lot of stress, without a doubt. And but people just need to look at the facts and go back in history, and you can look at different recessions and things that have happened, and we will get through this.
Absolutely.
And everybody just has to do what they have to do, and I think we'll be fine. But again, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Me.
Okay.
Right.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.